Hello, this is Jake from T-Annex Experimental, and this is the second developer log on Doom Island. This devlog is about the island generation and will include in-game footage unlike the last devlog. I'll show you guys 3 different tests of the island generation development, which are in chronological order. Firstly, before the tests, I'll tell you how the island generation works. The terrain of the island is pre-made by me using a tile set I made by myself. The water, the sand, and even the treehouse are part of this tile set. The actual randomly generated stuff are the positions of the plants and the creature spawners. The positions that this random generation script make are called cells, and active cells are the cells that spawn things on them like plants and creature spawners, but they're also empty cells which don't spawn anything on them, so they're used as gaps. And they're also used for things like the treehouse, which I don't want plants and creature spawners from overlapping with the actual treehouse itself. Furthermore, the island generator script uses a lot of processes. The first process is obviously about that empty and active cell thing, where it basically picks all the empty and active cells, and then it gets all the active cells in the second process, and the third process is where things get spawned, and the fourth process is basically where you got the feedback, like how many plants have been spawned and how many creature spawners have been spawned, stuff like that. Okay, now we're going to start with the 3 tests. The first test is basically to make sure the island generation works. So there's not a lot of different kinds of plants and creature spawners. There's only 2 objects. The plant object being palm tree and the creature spawn object being a bush. And there's 50-50 chance of it being either of them. As you can see in the actual footage, all the palm trees and the bushes spawning, and you can also see the gaps between them, which are the empty cells. As you can see, this island generation works. The only thing I don't like about it is the placeholder sprites, especially the sand, which has alpha channels visible in it. So the second test will have a lot better sprites. Before the second test, as I was on about the placeholders being bad, I've made new sprites for the plants and creature spawners. Some of them are actually sprite sheets, so they can be animated. Furthermore, I'm going to talk to you about how I made these sprites. First of all, I made models of the plants and creature spawners in Blender, and I made it so they only use the actual material colour and no textures, and smooth shading. Because I wanted them to look cartoony, especially that kind of 90s kind of old computer CGI look. You know, like how Clippy looks, you know, personal assistant, or just the 90s kind of CGI GIFs you'd find on the internet, that kind of look. After that, then I screenshot this model, and the model I'm using is the palm tree. And now I open up GIMP, which is image editing software, and I open up the screenshot, and the first thing I do is I use fuzzy select to get rid of the background, and after that I will then scale down this model to 256 pixels by 256 pixels. This is because I want it to be pixelated, because the 90s CGI images were low resolution. Finally, all I got to do now is just export this sprite. So yeah, that's how I make sprites. So now let's go on to the second test. Next, the second test. The test still uses them 2 objects and plants and creature spawn objects, but now because I got all them new sprites, I can have a lot more plant types and a lot more creature spawner types, and this is done with new conditions like edible and inedible for plants, and by having a new variable called type. This type variable is a very specific plant or creature spawner, like a cactus for plants or a monster cave for creature spawners. For example, the island generator script might make an active cell spawn a plant, and this plant may be an edible plant, and then the type would be a coconut tree. Or another example would be a plant again, and it might be an inedible plant, and that inedible plant will then be a fern, which is the type. Furthermore, regarding the creature spawners, now there are 2 types of creature spawners, the bush, which is now an animal spawner, and a cave, which is now a monster spawner. One last thing to note is that the actual variable does not make the object do different things. It just changes the sprite of the object, so later I'll actually make it so the actual variable does make the object do different things, like if it's an edible plant you can actually eat like the fruit off it, like the coconut tree. Finally, one last thing to say about this test is you can see the tile set's a lot better, you can see that the sand looks better, and I've actually got animated water now, so that's one last thing to say. Okay, let's go to the third test now. Now, the third test. In this test, I'm going to talk about the treehouse I've added to the island, and also a few other things. As I've already said, the treehouse is pre-built by me and is the spawn point of the players. Despite being pre-built, there is one thing the treehouse has regarding to island generation, which is that the cells in front of the treehouse can only be empty cells, which is because I don't want the objects spawned by active cells overlapping with the treehouse. Like, you don't want a coconut tree directly overlapping with, like, the elevator of the treehouse. Oh yeah, elevators, we'll talk about them later. So I'm going to divert the topic to why in the footage right now, you can see there are numbers above the objects. These numbers are the active cell numbers of the active cell that spawned that object. This is because I added another thing, which is called absolute animal spawners and absolute monster spawners, which will make there will be at least one animal spawner and one monster spawner on every island, which is because the monster and animal spawners had a very low chance of spawning in the island generator script. This goes back to the numbers above the objects, which are part of a dev tool I made, so I can actually see that these absolutes have been spawned. Because the absolutes are printed out in the actual, the console when I actually run the game. So I can actually then look at the numbers above every object and see if the active cell with the same number as the absolutes is in the game. So then I can see if it's worked. So yeah, it's a very nice dev tool. Lastly, now we're going on about the elevators of the treehouse. The elevators has got nothing to do with island generation really, but it's something that the players will be able to use so they can actually get from the treehouse to the island. Right now, I've made it so you have to press just the E key to do it because there's no players yet, so I can't make it so the players can actually make it go up and down. But when you press the E key, it makes the elevators go up and down. So yeah, that's the last thing I've got to say about this test. Now, this is the end of the devlog. This has been the second devlog regarding the island generation game. I've shown you 3 tests, I've shown you a lot of really cool stuff, and the next devlog will be about the players and the main menu stuff. So yeah, thank you for watching this devlog and hope you see the next one. See ya!